This is a remake of a 2018 video from my old channel because I ran out of ideas and video games are fucking boring. I've changed the style of the script and the video itself, but I haven't done any additional research because, come on. I think I did good and thorough Googling back then, but if there's any wrong info, feel free to send hate to that channel instead of this one. Just wanted to mention this because it is a different video to what I usually make, but it is gaming. And my channel may have gaming. People who do things out of passion have always been weird, first of all, like how, but also the definition of cool in my book. My lazy, procrastinating ass could never understand how someone devotes countless hours to developing a skill or working on a project without expecting anything in return. Well, other than respect, but you can't really feed your family with respect now, can you? That's why today I want to do a little deep dive, or rather a shallow dive, because I'm just as qualified to talk about this as any family vlogger is to have children, and I don't know anything about this topic, so we'll just do a little swim in the shallow end together and explore the underground world of the Warez scene, commonly known as just the scene. People who distribute copyrighted materials such as TV shows, movies, music, games, etc., also known as Warez. I'm gonna focus on games because, reminder, channel name Heb Gaming, and I think piracy is the most frequent topic of discussion in the gaming sphere. Again, I don't know if every piece of info I found is 100% true because this is a vast world that's hard to understand for a monkey brain Neanderthal like me. However, I did try to narrow it down and explain it in a concise, easy to understand way for my monkey brain brethren. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of gamer juice, and let's get started. I'm pretty sure most of you have hit the high seas before. Come on, don't lie to daddy. I know my audience and I know you're just a bunch of rascals. Maybe you're a broke kid without your own money, pathetic by the way, or you live in a country where a single game costs your entire yearly salary plus a blood sacrifice. Maybe you just want to try the game out before deciding to support it, or you're trying to avoid the abundance of hoops some games make you jump through in order to play them. Let's focus on these hoops for a bit. They are what is known as digital rights management, or DRM for short. You know the ancient saying, the bigger the hoop, the bigger the hoe? Well, experts believe the hoops referred to in this saying are DRM, and game studios are the hoes. That was probably the worst joke I ever made on this channel. Before we can even get into the cracking scene, we first have to understand what it is they're cracking in the first place. In an ideal world where everyone has an impeccable sense of morals and endless money in their wallets, video game companies create fully developed and polished games worthy of their price tag, and the consumers all pay money to play them. In the real world, however, yeah, no. Half-assed games with paywalls and microtransactions have ruined gamers' expectations from the industry, and more gamers have started rising up and turning to piracy to avoid supporting greedy behavior from giant corporations that put money above customer satisfaction. Video game publishers' answers to this are DRM technologies, serving to prevent unlawful copying and distribution of the games that they've invested tons of money and time into. That doesn't even look so bad on paper, right? That is, until the methods begin interfering with the gaming experience for actual buyers and causing more annoyance than the game is worth, like having to be logged into a service and online at all times to be able to play even a single-player game, which I cannot believe is a thing that's still around in 2021. Here's a few other examples. An example of early DRM you've probably come across if you're an ancient fuck like me is the product key you'd have to enter upon installing the game that would be located in a booklet or manual that came with the game. Software tampering DRM is a method some developers use to make certain functions of the game change if they detect an illegal copy, or in other words, fuck with you if you've been a bad boy. Examples are your character in Mirror's Edge becoming slower until you can't run anymore, or an invincible enemy spawning in Serious Sam 3. A more recent example of a service that provides DRM features you're probably familiar with is Steam, and the most widely used DRM technology in AAA games and supposedly the hardest to crack is called Denuvo. But look, no matter how secure you think something is, give it to enough internet nerds with too much free time and it will inevitably be broken. Even the sales director of Denuvo admitted that no game is uncrackable. Uncrackable! My voice is certainly fucking crackable. But the goal is to protect sales at launch when they are at their peak, because cracking this type of technology often takes a while. Probably the best DRM you can implement though, and coincidentally the one used the least in the AAA industry is... Can you guess? quality content that consumers want to pay money to support. I know I talk a lot of shit about Cyberpunk, but that game holds the record for the biggest selling digital launch of all time, with 10.2 million copies sold in the month of release. Cyberpunk launched without any DRM on GOG, and all of those copies were sold on Goodwill CDPR built previously by just releasing an amazing game, which was The Witcher 3. Yeah, people will definitely be more cautious next time because of the shit show Cyberpunk turned out to be, but the point is, all of those millions of copies could have theoretically been pirated. People just chose to spend money to support the devs. And it's been proven over and over again, even if you look at YouTubers who have Patreon or memberships, which, wow, coincidentally, look at that, ooh, that people will pay money to support someone or something they enjoy, even if they don't have to. And most of the pirated copies downloaded were very unlikely to be potential sales in the first place. Unfortunately, most of the big gaming companies couldn't give two flying fucks about passion, morals, quality product, and all those other bullshit poor people words. So this is where the scene comes in. The scene is an amazingly large underground network of pirates originating in the 1980s, and it's a very secretive society of competitive groups and teams all trying to be the first to release or premiere something new. If you've ever pirated a game, which by now we've established you have, you're probably familiar with some of these names. Have you ever wondered what the heck they even do and how they operate? Let's get a bit more technical and introduce some new words you'll learn today on the No Cap Education channel. I'll explain some of these in more detail, but this is the general hierarchy of the scene. At the core of the scene, there are release groups and top sites. Below them are FXP boards, IRC trading, news groups, and peer-to-peer. Release groups and top sites consider themselves to be the only true parts of the scene and basically despise the peer-to-peer plebs. Let's get even more in-depth by looking at how wares are usually released and how they trickle all the way down to peer-to-peer networks. First, release groups break the security of a game following scene standards. Scene standards is basically a bunch of rules that people in the scene have to follow to guarantee good quality releases. These rules are governed by the biggest and most established of scene groups and agreed between them before being made official. If a release is not in accordance with these rules, it will be nuked or marked as bad. The next step is to make the release available for other people. Early on, these releases used to be transferred through BBSs, which sounds like a category on Pornhub but actually means Bulletin Board System. A BBS is a computer server running software that allows users to connect to the system using a terminal program. Once logged in, the user can do all kinds of cool stuff such as uploading and downloading software and data, reading news and bulletins, and exchanging messages with other users. BBS boards that were used to distribute wares were known as elite boards, and they spawned their own subculture and gave rise to that corny way of typing that middle-aged Hollywood directors think is the mother language of hackers called leet speak.
And can we see what they're saying?
In leet speak. Luckily, I speak leet.
With the advancements of the internet, BBS boards became obsolete and were replaced by FTP servers known as top sites. Top sites are super fast, commonly supporting transfer speeds of hundreds to thousands of megabits per second, enough to transfer a full Blu-ray in seconds. Top sites also usually have many terabytes of storage capacity. These sites are often hosted at schools, universities, or companies. Release groups upload their releases to a few top sites they're affiliated with, which means they're granted the ability to upload and release there. When they upload a new release, a command is run which makes it public to the other users of the top site and announces the release in the IRC channel of the site. While these sites are protected with level 69 hacker barriers, a few law enforcement operations were able to infiltrate the groups and shut down the sites they operate on, so naturally you can't just type some shit into Google and access one. Top sites are kept very secret and are never advertised to the public. From then on, it's up to the so-called racers to race. A racer is somebody who will transfer the fresh release to other top sites that they have access to. They'll compete with other racers, and whoever accomplishes the task first will get rewarded with credits, usually 3 times the amount that they've raised. For example, transferring 3 GB of data will grant them 9 GB worth of credits on the target top site. Credits are essentially the amount you're allowed to download from the site. When a member doesn't pass the minimum monthly required amount of upload, he'll automatically be deleted. encrypted. Naturally, the more people have access to the files, the more likely that they get leaked everywhere. So from there on, the file eventually arrives to peer-to-peer networks such as BitTorrent. Most peer-to-peer users are not even aware of the existence of the scene. Like I said, the scene kinda hates peer-to-peer, which any sane person would if they ever scrolled through comments on torrent sites. This stems from peer-to-peer being an insecurity to the scene. The sceners want to keep the releases for a limited amount of people, but because every dumbass with a computer has access to peer-to-peer software such as BitTorrent, everyone is able to download the leaked releases. This, of course, catches the attention of big boy publishers who think they're losing sales, and brings lots of unwanted attention to these groups. In fact, release groups often urge the people who download to actually buy the game if they enjoy it. Here's a comment from a Reddit AMA made by an ex-scene member that's basically the reason why I even made this video. Point is to trade it amongst ourselves, believe it or not. I don't really care if 10,000 people on the Pirate Bay are enjoying it. I'd rather just have the quality people in the scene know that we got that release out and it works. Not many people really know the exact process these groups use to actually reverse engineer games because, well, if they did, that would probably be a little awkward, but it's definitely not something you can do with your morning coffee. It takes a lot of time, dedication, and passion, which is exactly why I find it all so fascinating. There are some pay-to-leech top sites which take money in exchange for access, but they are generally frowned upon by the release groups. Most of these people put in countless hours into doing this without any monetary gain, and in fact often pay for source material and servers with their own money, all the while being under risk of getting caught. All they're motivated by is their competitive spirit and the challenge of doing the impossible, and if that's not the most inspirational thing ever, if someone at Netflix or whatever is watching this, which I'm sure they are, get in touch with some former scene members. I'd watch the fuck out of an actual documentary diving into this real world that's more fun and exciting than all those imaginary leet-speaking hackers we've been seeing on TV for years. To close this off, here's a couple quotes by some scene groups from their NFO files. Keep in mind we do all this because we can and because we like the thrilling excitement of winning over other competing groups. We absolutely don't do all these releases to please the general user that rather wants to spend their cash on updating to the latest hardware and sees the scene releases as a source to play all these games for free. Enjoy playing, and remember, if you like it, support the developer. We do this just for fun. We are against any profit or commercialization of piracy. We do not spread any release, others do that. In fact, we buy all our own games with our own hard-earned and worked-for efforts, which is from our own real-life non-scene jobs, as we love game originals. Nothing beats a quality original. If you like this game, buy it. We did. You know that insane keygen music that I've been using throughout this video? That music and ASCII art you see in NFO files is made by ASCII art groups. This is a cool sort of subculture that grew up alongside the scene. They still exist in the scene and often make art for other group NFOs in exchange for stuff such as slots on affiliate sites.